by becoming rich.
Take all your money and buy Bitcoin.
Wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. Today is Friday. It is the 6th of September. And do we have a special day for you? So, first of all, so that everyone's aware, I'm going to stream earlier today. And I'm actually going to stream for the non-farm payrolls. It's going to be a live trading stream. Will be recorded, of course. But we're going to do Casual Fridays earlier. Because I have to be away at the normal time. Plus, we've got super special Economic Data Release Day, NFP, which often gets traded live. So join us for that. I'll probably go live at... I guess I'll go live at... probably go live at 12:30. Data comes out at 12:30. I want to let the data come out. Let the data get digested by the market. So I think I should go live at 12:30 p.m. UTC. And we will go for an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes maybe, so that we can catch also the New York Open. So let's fucking do it. Casual Fridays live trading stream. I'll show you exactly how I trade around economic data releases and the New York Open. So, GM to that. Now, daily levels. Let's take a look at how the market is moving. We have zoom it in a bit. We come down into the weekly market structure level, which is where price has been chopping around. It's doing this choppy death grind where it keeps going lower and lower and lower without actually fully breaking down. And it looks like shit while still being within the previous range. So to be honest, it's very similar to what we saw over here in either of these sell-offs, more so this one, where it just seems like there's some actual heavy spot selling going on. Seems like there's some actual selling going on. That one obviously eventually capitulated with two big legs down. This one, who knows? History's not going to repeat, but will it rhyme? So, for BTC, I mean, honestly, it's easy to just look at this and say it looks like shit, because it does. And it's now been grinding lower, though, for what? Wednesday to Wednesday. I mean, it's been grinding lower for nearly 10 days now. Where it just keeps sideways, then lower, sideways, then lower and lower and lower. And, you know, we're at a point now where people are starting to question. This is the first time. It obviously like, and when we've had these big sell-offs, you go on Twitter and you'll see some of the stuff coming up onto your feed. So obviously whatever gets on your news feed with high views on the algorithm is like, it's at least a popular post. It doesn't mean it's consensus, but it certainly means people are thinking that way to some degree. And I woke up this morning and had a scroll through, and there's a bunch of people like reposting their old posts of calling tops and saying, see, you should have listened to me and not listened to anybody else. So you've got like the bears kind of come out taking a little bit of clout here, victory lap. Very dangerous situation to be a bear. This is a very dangerous situation. Because the problem is, this is obviously bearish. This is obviously a weakening chart. This is obviously a weekly chart that is about to lose the last support before becoming a proper downtrend. And yet, shorting at 55.9 is probably not a great idea because of that. I do think that we go lower. We just keep, you know, sweeping lower and lower and lower. But I think eventually it's going to hit a pocket of demand and just fucking squeeze all these super late shorts out. Like, again, BTC can easily rise to 58 It can easily go to 59. It can even go to 60 and touch those highs and still be bearish. Now, it may not, but when it's moving slow, it's generally not a great place to short into, right? If you listen to altcoin requests yesterday, I'm about as bearish as you can be on this market, mostly on alts, mostly around the short-term view, because I don't know what happens like a month away. Like in a month, we might have a better setup. As of right now, it is a bearish market, but it's also not a great idea to just. It's not a good idea to give up and think, oh, that's it, we're all done, because it always seems worst right before it bottoms. It always bottoms in an area you wouldn't expect it to as well. So this doesn't look like a bottom, but in a week from now, if it goes sideways and comes back up, it's going to be one, right? Whether you feel like it or not. This also didn't look like a bottom over here. The FTX lows didn't look like a bottom, right? You had a double bottom, but it was in the middle of nowhere. It was like at 15k, and everyone's like, no, we lost 20, so it must go to 12, you know. So time will tell. I think we need a little bit more demoralization, which doesn't mean it has to go lower right away, but it does mean I think probably there's not going to be much movement. So any kind of combination of just sideways and lower, right? Whether it's just straight up sideways, whether it's grinding lower, whether it's a squeeze up, another squeeze that fails and goes lower, just another few weeks of chop probably. You've got the Fed, the FOMC, where they're going to cut rates and all that coming up September 18th. And I'm trying to thread this needle because I keep looking online at the same fucking idiots who are constantly flip-flopping and have been wrong basically all the way. Talking about banana zones and massive breakouts and it's all going up, let's moon. All summer they were bull posting. Now they're starting to tell you why it's bearish, which is kind of a bottom signal in itself. But then also, it's all like the market, basically they're saying the market's wrong. You know, with the rate cuts coming and the injection of liquidity and all this and all that, the market's going to be so good. I think it's important to remember that they revised the jobs numbers and they revised the GDP, I think, every month, every quarter GDP. Jobs numbers, I think they revised them every month of last year, which means what they tell you today, like the unemployment rate, the payrolls, that's what they say today. But then 3, 6, 9 months later, you'll see a revision that happens where they say, oh yeah, by the way, all of those numbers were wrong. These are the actual numbers. And this is classic fuckery. I think it was 1 million jobs overestimated. And so anyway, you also don't need to be a fucking genius. Just go and look outside. Go to the shop. Go to a cafe. Go on the bus. Go on the train. Don't go on the bus. Don't go on the train. Fuck that. Go on a plane. You're not going to learn much on the bus or a train. Go to an airport. Just when you're living your life, I mean, people aren't doing as well as they had been before. And so, if there wasn't an expectation of printing money, where would we be? Because there isn't actually any money being printed here. I know people talk about this, but this is a very mid-curve take as well. Is people are like, they're just going to keep printing all the money. Right? Yeah, over a long enough time frame, will there be more money printed? Sure. Will the debt situation get worse? Probably, yeah. But the liquidity conditions have been rising. You've seen all this, for ages. It doesn't correlate one-to-one with Bitcoin. Bitcoin still does well. And it certainly doesn't correlate with alts. Right? So you have to be careful about anything that becomes just completely accepted as the consensus. After COVID, which had a panic and a crash, the recovery was completely unknown. Nothing like this had ever happened before, so nobody knew what it was like to pump $4 trillion into an already hot economy. And it ended up being a fucking massive bubble. So now everyone's like, yeah, let's go, it's going to happen again. First of all, it's not going to happen again. Secondly, the only way it could happen is with a crisis, which we haven't had yet. So the crisis will cause stuff to crash first. That's how it's a crisis. If there was a crisis, people would say, I've had this question before, is like, if COVID happened again today, surely Bitcoin wouldn't go down because everyone knows what's going to happen next. It's the wrong way around. Bitcoin has to go down to create the crisis. Stocks have to go down to create the crisis. If COVID came out and nobody sold, and Bitcoin stayed at 7 or 8k, and the stock market stayed near all-time highs, and no one panicked, there would not have been any response to it. The response is entirely, by the Fed and by the Treasury, the response is entirely related to financial conditions, which is the markets, and how people are feeling. So, because it's like a proxy for it. If the markets are crashing, it means people, because that's who fucking owns stocks and crypto, it means people are panicking. And the panic is what creates the reaction. So, I see a lot of, frankly, I just think it's really bad takes. They say, oh, well, it's all just going to normalize, and we're going to go back to the way we were, and it's going to go way higher. I'm like, well, why would it? If you normalize back to lower inflation and jobs market is fine, and the money that was printed has been still circulating, right? There's no new money being printed by the Fed. There's no QE. They've been in QT, doing the opposite. The government have been running a fiscal deficit. That's rising, yes. But on balance, there's not really mass easing happening. So then Bitcoin being at 2021 levels, when we're basically at 2021 levels for everything else, makes sense. So, I just think it's fucking, I think it's getting to the point where it's quite obvious that people are just wrong with their idea of what should happen. So if Bitcoin's going to go back up, it's going to get back above this level first. And I think this is probably where I would want to get bullish. Back above the pivot. Ideally, you hold the pivot and it looks something like this. Maybe we wick down below here one more time. Maybe we don't. But then we get a rally up, comes back up into this area and consolidates around that pivot. I think that is where we go all the way. I don't think it should move up here and hold if it's not going to go there. So for me, if we get back above that pivot and we kind of consolidate around there for a few days, that's where I'll be getting long. That would be my view for the next long potential. And for shorts, like even though I'm talking about, like, again, because that would also probably move up into the bands. You probably have the bands starting to flip as well. Like it seems like I'm super bearish, but I'm also not like screaming out to short. Day trades, shorts keep working. Swing trades, not really. If you would have tried to swing short this, you would have got stopped out there, right? You're trying to short in here. But if you're day trading those shorts, you're catching those impulses and you're being disciplined and exiting quickly, you make money. And also you make money on the upside. There's some nice long trades. And then nice short, but close it. Don't short any of this shit, swing short. A couple of day trade shorts as it goes to the lows. It's a market that's still only rewarding very short-term moves. That will eventually fail, and there will be a bigger high time frame move. That's why I said in trading analysis, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, that an impulse lower is probably going to come, because we're at this period here where it's grinding lower and people don't want to take swing shorts, like I just said. Because it's not a great place to short, objectively. But it also is a good place to short. You just don't have the balls to short it, which is fine, by the way. That's not me saying like that, you need to short this, you pussy. No. The reason why it's a good place to short, potentially, is because you've got an invalidation at the pivot. It doesn't mean it's going to go down, right? But if you did short in the last few days, your invalidation should be a reclaim of that pivot. which then means that your downside is limited to about 59, and your upside could go to 50, and of course, if you're right and it's all fucking over, it could go to 40. And there's no longing here is fucking dumb. Like, longing here is retarded. This is just, and I'm not saying it goes down. Going long here has no basis. Outside of just a short-term move, no basis. It's fucking done. Anyone who's doing it has basically no confirmation and are just guessing. You can pull all the fucking stats out. Oh, we took out these lows and we're reversing. We're in this block. Bullshit. It's moving the wrong way. It's below the pivot. It's below the value area of this entire distribution. There's no reason at all to get long yet from any higher time frame basis, right? If we drag this across all of this kind of 5 months we've had since the top, it's distributed all the volume here. We've lost it. We've tried to reclaim it. We failed it. We're hanging around here. We're moving, rolling over, heading back down, going towards the wick. There's absolutely nothing here to go swing long for. That doesn't mean that there can't be very soon. There can be. It would only take, like I said, it would only take a relatively small move to make that look good again, especially once you start to break in here. Once you break back inside that value area, you're looking at value area high as potential, certainly POC. Longs can present very soon. I'm just saying that there's nothing here that would indicate that today is a good day. Not yet. And we might see it coming up, but I don't know. ETH continuing to just break lower and lower and lower. I mean, again, this kind of stuff is just really, really just classic bear market type of action, where it goes lower and it has big breaks and then it goes lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, and it's just like, why is ETH doing anything different to what it did in 2021? This was a blow off top and a straight crash that had a triple bottom. That's different to something distributing, which is going lower and just rolling around and going lower and trying to bounce and trying to bounce. This didn't try to bounce. It just nuked straight down, one bounce, and then triple bottom and it went higher. By the way, that also was not a bull market. That was the end. The bull market was over at that point. It was just a range trade based on 3 Hours Capital and FTX and Alameda, who all don't exist anymore. It's the only reason we went there in November is because of those big players. And they don't exist. They're dead. They're gone. This is just bear market stuff, like straight up. And I mean, people can cope all they want, but it fucking is. And what will happen most likely, because people haven't admitted it's a bear market yet, and I'd like, again, is it going to be one? I don't know, whatever. Maybe Trump will save it, but fuck all that shit. At the moment, price action's bearish. If we saw something like this, you could see a rally up, right? And people are like, oh, now we're back again. Except, well, no, it would just be another lower high bounce. It'd be like this or whatever, you know, pick out any fucking counter trend rally. When you've got all these gaps above, counter trend rallies can happen. And when people don't think it's over, because again, 2024, nobody bet on the bull market to end in 2024. That's because they're basing their opinions off of like old 4-year cycle theory. If cycles are real and they are going to continue, then yes. If not, then Bitcoin's going to trade more like in line with some macro factors, and the rest of the market will probably follow it. But if you look at something like ETH, the next best trade is almost certainly a long. Yeah, you got two things that can happen here. Either it's just death grind and it goes all the way back to fill in that gap before there's a long, all the way back to there. Or you see it take out some of these levels, maybe it takes out these lows, and you have a really sharp rally that then gets sold into. Those are like the two most likely paths I see for ETH. I don't understand why anybody would continue to buy ETH. How much more evidence do you need that there was no ETF trade? Justin Sun and Richard Hart and all these fucking retards were piling billions of dollars into ETH on this rally, and most of them allocated near the top, expecting free, easy money for the ETF. Did not happen. So they've got heavy bags that need to be dumped. You got Jump. You got all these other, many players on chain, by the way, for Ethereum. Loads of people on chain who are providing liquidity, who have money in the ecosystem that have liquidation. They're using ETH as collateral. They have liquidation prices somewhere down there. ETH's fucked. It's cooked. It's really struggling. And every ETF buyer that ever bought is underwater. And everyone who bought in anticipation of the ETF is underwater. And if it goes back to the previous, resistance, people are just going to cut. They're going to sell. They're going to cut their losses. There isn't an actual clear bit. Not even that. There's just not a clear case at all for Ethereum to be bullish. Because how many times can you use the idea of, hated rally? Like what? You see, this move was not normal, right? This move was massive accumulation. This unidirectional, right, just moves in one direction only from people allocating, like big players who said, let's fucking go. We're going to fill up on ETH here. Yeah, it's going to spend some time consolidating, but then it's going to go to all-time high, and I'm going to make easy money because I'm going to buy it at 2,500 and I'm going to sell it at 5,000. And you can buy billions of dollars of ETH. And everyone had the same idea. And it didn't happen. And the same shit happened in 2021. We had this up only. This is when supposedly institutions were TWAPing ETH, which is nonsense. And guess what? It all fell apart. And that time, instead of making a lower high like it did this time, it just happened to take the highs up. So the only difference between this and this is that this time the lower high led to a lower low instead of the lower high leading to a higher high. There's no reason why ETH would go up. Zero. And again, this doesn't mean it won't rally. There will be a point, at some point. I've no doubt. At some point, it'll probably sweep out stuff and it will rise and it will look really good and it will rise back up. But I just think that once it gets back to resistance, it's going to do the same thing again. And it could even have it could have a 2-month rally. And going from 2,000 to 3,400 is going to make everyone forget how bad ETH is. It's not going to feel bad forever. It's going to get people excited again. And then it's going to cuck once more, like it always does. And probably go all the way back down and have to reaccumulate back in the 1,000 area. I don't know. I don't want to predict anything too far out. I just don't think ETH has any kind of bullish structure yet. The most bullish thing for ETH would be to go sideways for a long time. Right, would be if it went sideways for long enough that you could actually look at this and say that's a base that's been built. Right, it's actually built enough of an accumulation base at a higher level. Right, so it's built accumulations at higher levels to actually kick off. If this thing rallies in the next 3 to 6 weeks, that's not good. I would much prefer to see it go well into 2025 and then rise from there. That would be, in my mind, that would be more of a actual base. Like, it took ETH 2 years, or a year and a half, just to break out from that base. That was its bear market base. And that was a really nice one, right? That was like almost like a fucking triangle pattern, where you have it just rising up like this. That's a super nice base to build off for a bull market. And that's all we got. And now it's heading the opposite way. So, anyway, cope all you want, but it seems cooked at the moment. And makes it kind of difficult. When we get bullish next, when the market bottoms out and goes for a rally, I think the natural inclination is to just say fuck Ethereum, like Bitcoin only. But that's really becoming consensus now. One of the things that happens when you have altcoins that just get absolutely battered down, like they have been, if you've seen altcoin requests, you'll know that. Yesterday's stream. And ETH, which is supposed to be the biggest altcoin, is just doing shit as well. It's super easy to then like be kind of reflexive and say, oh, Bitcoin's the best. Oh, I should have bought. Here's an anecdote. Excuse me. I ran into somebody at the gym who I don't speak to often. I haven't spoken to him in years. He knows how to do crypto. And I know he's like Mr. Retail, like super retail. Definition of dumb money. And he said to me, I put loads of money into like Solana and stuff last August, September. And I was like, fuck, that was good entry. Good timing, right? Like August, September last year was fucking perfect. And he goes, yeah, I got like 3-4x my money. Turned 100k into 400k or whatever. And I didn't sell it. And then I started leverage trading. And so he's lost, not all of it, but like it's drawn all the way back down. But then he said, and this was the important part from like a very subjective sentiment side, he said, should have just swapped it all to Bitcoin. I said I was going to do it and I didn't. So he's talking about like, somewhere back here, right? Should have swapped it all into Bitcoin somewhere over there. Got rid of the alts and eased off and all that and not leverage traded and swapped it to Bitcoin. So obviously that's a hindsight. Yeah, I should have done this, should have done. Yeah, should have. You should have bought Bitcoin in 2010 as well, right? And fucking never sold it. But what that tells me is that that's how people are thinking. They're thinking, look how much stronger Bitcoin is. Instead of saying this could all be over and maybe Bitcoin's just ready to collapse and everything else is collapsed first because it's shit and Bitcoin's going to be last. No, it's the opposite. Bitcoin's the only thing that's strong. I should have listened. I should have sold my alts and went into Bitcoin. Fuck everything else. It's all about Bitcoin. That's interesting to me because what are people going to do next time it starts to look bullish? They're just going to pile into Bitcoin. That tells me either we're going to go lower, right? Because people are probably already thinking that. Or when we rally next, maybe Bitcoin doesn't do that well. It depends. I don't know. I'm never going to write Bitcoin off. I'm always going to be Bitcoin max. I'm always going to hold Bitcoin above anything else. But I guess that makes me lean more bearish. Right? Because it's like people are accepting now that Bitcoin is the thing you need to have. Now, are people actually swapping their alts back into Bitcoin once the alts are already down 56, 70%? No. People just don't do that. It's just really, really hard for people to take a loss. They just don't do it. And then when they think of swapping back to Bitcoin, it's like, yeah, but Bitcoin's not going to move up. So, anyway. Most of this is just fucking overanalyzing in reality. Right? Market's dead. I wouldn't even call Bitcoin bearish. It's just sort of dead in this consolidation. Altcoins are bearish. They're making lower highs and lower lows. And we're waiting for a catalyst. And sentiment-wise, it's got so bad that there's probably a big bounce coming. Does that bounce lead to actually a shift of structure, or is it just another complacency bounce? Who knows? Today, non-farm payroll will be good. Trade of the day. I'll lay out some trades for you. G fucking M.